A very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining our Homeopathy 24/7 podcast. We are going to be speaking to an array of international guests who will share their knowledge and experiences of homeopathy with you. We will discuss all types of subjects such as remedies, symptoms, and stories of health. No matter where you are with your homeopathic journey, we aim to inspire you on your quest to natural health and living. The podcast is brought to you by Mary Greensmith, the founder of Homeopathy 24/7, which is a global platform connecting you with a homeopath wherever you are in the world, 24 hours a day. So let's get started with today's chat. Please welcome Mary Greensmith.
Hello. Lovely to see you, Ciara. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's talk about homeopathy.
Well, that would be an absolute pleasure, Mary, and it's lovely to be here in your company today. Always a favourite subject to talk about. So
that's the nice thing, isn't it? That actually, as homeopaths, we just get to talk about homeopathy with lovely people who also want to talk about homeopathy. And that's what I love about Homeopathy 24/7. And I didn't say that actually you are one of our homeopaths on the team. And so tell me a little bit about your journey into homeopathy. How did you find homeopathy?
Yeah, it's I love this question and I never get tired of answering it. And I suppose just to say to you as well, Mary, one thing I always talk to prospective clients is about who I am and my journey to homeopathy, because I think we've all realised that finding a homeopath that you can connect with and that you can gel with is so important. So if somebody has the same values and beliefs as you do and recognise things, it's always great. Anyway, so my journey to homeopathy probably began earlier than I can imagine. I was brought up in a small rural town in Ireland, in the Midlands, and my father and my grandfather were pharmacists, and they were both very much kind of the apothecary type pharmacists. So from as long as I can remember, I used to love and enjoy going into my dad's pharmacy dispensary in the background, and he had those beautiful wooden cases similar to what you have there in the background, each labelled with little substances like aconitum or sulfur. And I was always fascinated by these little drawers, and inside were often toxic substances, because what he made was he made all his own cough bottles and tonics and medicines and a lot of veterinary cures and so on. And my local, I suppose the locals would have considered him like the local doctor. They'd bypass the doctor and go straight in and get a tonic or a cough bottle. And I was always fascinated when you're standing up at the counter watching him with his pestle and mortar grinding these substances, and people talked about his wonderful cures. But when I was about 8 or 9 years old, this GP from England actually came to live in my local town, and he was also a homeopath. Now, when you're 8 or 9, you have no idea what homeopathy is. And he visited 3 or 4 of the local chemists, pharmacists, and asked them all would they stock homeopathic remedies, because he wanted to prescribe and needed a stockist. So the other pharmacists in the area would have considered themselves too modern and said, no, not interested. My father just pounced on it and said, absolutely, because he loved that whole natural approach to medicine, and he was already resisting that kind of move towards the kind of synthetic pharmaceutical end of things.
Yeah.
So I remember watching all these little bottles arrive, and nobody bought them for quite a while, because it takes time for people to get to know homeopathy. It's an alien concept for people. And a few months later, I had a few warts on my hands, and like you do in rural Ireland, you try to stick your hand in a well to see if they'll go away, or holy water, or dandelion milk or whatever. Nothing worked. Tried to burn them off, and my mother said, let's try that GP who's also a homeopath and see if he has anything. So I went into him and I sat down with my legs swinging on the chair. And I remember my mother answering most of the questions, and I answered a few. And he gave me these little pills called Tuya. I had no idea what they were. And sure enough, after a week, the warts were gone. And I remember being struck by how could one little tiny sugar pill, work so magically.
Yeah.
So I suppose that was my introduction to homeopathy, even though I wasn't familiar with what it was. Then fast forward to when you're 18, 19 and you're looking for a career, and I would be the epitome of kind of organized chaos. And I was always drawn to travel. I was always drawn to the caring profession, but nothing seemed to fit. So I ended up going to university and studying tourism. I then left that because I wanted to be a pediatric nurse. So I studied nursing in a pediatric hospital for about 18 months. But I came across a couple of matrons at the time. It was still old school, and they didn't like that I was getting emotionally involved with patients, because I loved talking to the kids. I didn't want to be just making hospital beds in a beautiful way. I wanted to engage and understand why a lot of the children were there and how they were coping with, whether it was cancer or any other chronic illness. So myself and my career in nursing came to an abrupt end when I was told that I was not suitable, that I was getting too emotionally involved. So that really kind of disappointed me. And I suppose going and doing a counselling course, there was always a draw for me to just engage with people on a different level and still kind of paying homage to my father's background. Then I went to Sri Lanka for a few months in my early 30s. I had an early midlife crisis, I think. Got sick, and of course I said, oh, here's where homeopathy is showcased beautifully. So I took a few remedies, felt very well, and had this kind of epiphany that when I went home, I was going to leave my job and I wanted to study homeopathy, and that was it. And I'm going to use this word for the first time probably in a few cases over the while. My gut instinct was, I found home. This is what I want to do. Yeah. So that's the long version of how I got to homeopathy.
Okay, brilliant. What a lovely story. What an absolutely lovely story. It's so, I'm just so jealous of you. Being brought up with your dad.
Yeah.
Just being interested in nature, because those old, it's so different, isn't it? And in your household, it must have been normal to talk about the beauty of things around us.
Absolutely. I mean, from when I can remember, when I got sick or my siblings got sick, there wasn't an automatic kind of opening the first aid cupboard or taking Stemetal or paracetamol. My dad was always kind of say, let's try this, or try even honey and lemon or salt, whatever it was. So he instinctively had he just had a great instinct of what would work. And yet he had to embrace the pharmaceutical end of things, but he loved working with nature and the substances. And as I said, watching him making his tonics was just a joy. One of my snapshot kind of memories of times gone by. So his legacy continues in a different way. And actually he ended up visiting a homeopath for the first time at the age of 75, because he had a lot of self-confidence issues. Even though he dealt with people all the time, he was crucified with self-confidence issues. And the homeopath that he went to, you could see he just kind of blossomed even at the age of 70. So it's never too late.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing because, like you said before, it's just like finding home. Suddenly you found something that resonates.
Yeah. exactly. The vibrations are all around us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very, very grateful to find my gut instinct at any stage.
And so how have you found being a homeopath? Do you enjoy it?
I do. I love it. And I'd say I would probably guess that what's very common to many of us when we start off in our training and in our journey practicing is the lack of exposure, I suppose, to cases. You second guess everything, and you tend to kind of, okay, I've studied this in college. So when you get your first few cases, or you have to do case studies, and you're trying to do everything by the book and repertorise perfectly and use the materia medicas of, 20 different renowned homeopaths, you can get really kind of locked into this feeling of, I have to do it right and I have to do it well, and it has to have some kind of constructive manner around it.
Yeah.
And I think I had to ditch that very, very quickly. What I really, really found early on is, going back to the gut instinct, that it was quite disheartening early on when you start practicing, because a lot of cases they just don't get off to a great start because you don't listen to your gut instinct. And I find that once you relax and feel that things are going to be okay, if you just open your mind and let things fill your mind, listen to your gut instinct, that's when the beauty and that's when the magic happens.
I agree so much. And this just this intuition is something, of course, that we're all born with, but then is grounded out of us because it doesn't fit with society, does it? You're not to go with your gut instinct. You're not to go with that sixth sense. You're not, because it doesn't have any place. But I think, does this begin when we begin our training, that actually we think, okay, what are you thinking here? What's the first thing that's coming into your mind? Let's talk about that. And for the first time, we're allowed to let our brains work and let all of that information just flow.
Exactly. And I think that's where the creativity of homeopathy comes alive. Because as you say, we've all grown up, most of us, if the lucky ones not necessarily, but we've all grown up with that rigid education system where you have to do things in a certain way. And as you said, the intuition, the need to just expand your mind is really suppressed. So when you study homeopathy, it's mind-blowing to a certain degree that there's so much there, and you can really kind of, the world is your oyster. And then the abundance of remedies, the abundance of provings that are going on constantly, it's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And quite often then, what we're talking about is, when we're looking for the right remedy, we have to think, okay, I'm thinking of this, but the book's saying this.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Exactly. And I can think of a few cases that really demonstrates that example very well. A few years ago, this lady came to see me. She'd had real challenges with very, very difficult skin rash all across her chest area. And she had this for probably about 5 or 6 weeks. And she was very distressed because her son was getting married and she had the perfect outfit to show her lovely figure, and disaster struck with this rash. She'd been to 3 dermatologists. And of course, as we all know, she was referred to myself as a last resort, which is great. We all love last resorts.
Yes, it happens a lot, doesn't it?
Exactly. And this is where she came to see me. I looked at the rash, took her case, spent a lot of time asking her all about her symptoms and what makes it worse, what makes it better, when did it start, all as I thought I'd ticked all the boxes, asking all the questions. Sent her on her way and said, I'll be back to you as soon as I can. Sat down, worked on the case, repertorized it, double checked, triple checked, and I don't know, I can't remember, perhaps sulfur came up first and maybe graphites. I'm throwing remedies out here.
Okay.
But yeah, I think sulfur was, it was a no-brainer as far as the logic and the books went. Gave her the prescription. A couple of days later, she was getting really stressed because it was worse. And I thought, oh no. But all along, it just didn't sit with me, even though sulfur was like a red beacon going, prescribe me to, books. It just didn't sit with me. So as I was on the phone to her for this quick follow-up, I have a lovely wooden chalet in the back of my garden, and it's looking out into a small garden with various plants and so on. But as I was talking to her, I said, can you actually just draw a picture of your rash and the way it's moving and how it's changing in the last day or so? Because she said it had spread and it was growing. And I just, my intuition said, draw a picture of your rash. So she sent me a photo and she drew the pattern as to how she perceived it. And I looked out and I have ivy growing along one of my walls, and it was almost identical in the pattern. And I said, of course, it was rust tox. So I prescribed one pilule of rust tox, and I got a wonderful email from her a couple of days later saying, I can't believe it, it's gone. And that was one of the first times where I said, right, you have to listen to your gut instinct, your intuition. And it gave me such joy to think, brilliant. This is,
a fantastic story. How lovely is that? And to even think, okay, just draw a rash, draw what the shape means to you. Wow.
I sometimes you can't understand why these thoughts and come into your mind, but there's something there anyway that really guides you. And I think again it's another dimension of nature proving to us that everything around us is has a use in nature.
Exactly, that's right. And all we've got to do is stop and listen.
And
of course that is so homeopathic in the first place, isn't it? Listen to your body and listen with, well, more than just your ears. It's listening with your whole body, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, even in the last 2 years with the rise of online consultations and Zoom and Skype and so on, I think we were all a little bit reticent. Well, I probably was reticent about, are we going to get that same tangible energy when we're talking to somebody on Zoom? But it is very interesting when somebody calls you for that 15-minute discovery call or whatever, there is just that instinct or intuition. I like them, I want to work with them, or not too sure. So it's there, whether it's in person or virtually, and you can't.
However many miles away. It's very strong, isn't it?
It is very strong. Actually, that's a lovely way of putting it. It's so strong, and we just have to stop it sometimes, that intuition. So that was a lovely case. And I have a few more if you want to.
Tell us. Come on, we love stories about homeopathy.
Once upon a time. No, another one was, again, I suppose it's interesting the way things things go full circle, I should say. In college, in homeopathic college, there's a tongue twister. In college, when I was studying homeopathy, I'm sure like many of us in the 3rd or 4th year, we are asked maybe to choose one remedy and really kind of come up with a not a thesis, but project or whatever way it's structured. And I don't know why, but at the time I had this fascination with seahorses. I thought they were the most beautiful sea creatures. So I said, right, I'm going to do my project on the seahorse remedy. Hadn't a clue about it, didn't know anything about the remedy at all. So I went off and produced this beautiful piece, which included an artistic impression of a seahorse that was done by my niece, who's an amazing artist. I just had such an affinity with this creature, with this remedy. And fast forward, whatever, 12, 13 years later, I was so annoyed because I'd never had the chance to use the remedy. And I'd gone to Helios and bought the remedy in about 4 different potencies, and it's sitting there, and I'm kind of, I'm never going to get a chance to use the remedy. So literally 6 months ago, I had this client of mine who's been coming to me for a few years, and she'd had her first baby 2 years ago. And after, I suppose, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, this longed for baby, she was very distressed because the baby was just not bonding with her at all. And she desperately wanted to bond with the baby. But she tried and persisted, but there was just nothing there. The little baby had no interest in being in the company of the mum, just wanted to be around the dad. She was a teacher, so she was going back to work after 6 months. When the mum came into the room, the child would scream, a high-pitched scream. It was almost this unbelievable aversion to her mum. And of course, what you might think of would be the lax, some of the maternal remedies, umbilical cord, tried them all, nothing happened. And I think she had just kind of given up at that stage and thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's just me. I'm not a good mother. So then I was giving her remedies to try and help things along. So the little baby, the little girl, was about 12 months old there just a couple of months ago. No improvement whatsoever. And she called me in desperation saying, is there anything else you can think of? It's just horrible. I'm actually getting very depressed about this. So again, bing, intuition. I said, seahorse remedy. And I thought about how nature works. The male seahorse is the carrier of the baby. The baby here only wanted to be around the dad. So I gave 1 dose of Hippocampus Kuda in January. 2 weeks later, I got an email from the mum saying, I'm so happy. She's not screaming when I come into the room anymore. She's better. She's not much better, but she's getting better. So I said, give her a Hippocampus Kuda 200C. 5 days later, she called me on the phone crying, the mum, saying, last night we were in the bed and the little toddler crawled up onto the mum's chest, put her head down and said, Mama, and gave her a hug. And I thought, what a beautiful, beautiful example of nature at its finest, and the intuition again working. And it's not me saying, oh wow, because obviously, a lot of our cases take a lot longer to work out, but it's just 2 super examples of how it's so interesting the way remedies come and go, come into your world for a reason, and even if it's just helped one person, fantastic.
It's been worth it, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Amazing.
I'll stop talking now.
But now you're going to be inundated now with people saying, okay, look, this is for me. I know somebody who has this. But it's you touched on a point that we as homeopaths experience quite a lot, and that is that the most indicated remedy sometimes isn't right and sometimes doesn't work. So where do we go from there? And thank goodness a lot of our clients know that sometimes it doesn't happen the first time. It does take a while to actually get to know what really is happening, because we are so governed by our speech, aren't we? How we explain things, and we're not used to explain things how we really think. We explain things in the way that we expect people want to hear.
Yes. Yeah.
And that doesn't give us the whole story, does it?
No. And I feel so much for people as well who are new to homeopathy, and they have their books there, and rightly so, they're trying kind of 1 remedy, 2 remedy, 3 remedies, and nothing is helping, and it's so frustrating. And that's where I suppose the art of prescribing when you go to a homeopath is wonderful, because maybe in a consultation for the first time you can start to see how the 360 approach can sometimes really be what you need at a particular time. Not always, but for chronic stuff in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's been so lovely to chat with you, Ciara. We could go
likewise
on for hours, couldn't we?
we could. No, it's been great. It's nice to get an opportunity to talk about the magic of homeopathy, the intuition, and how we all find our own way as well, because we all have different styles. We all have different comfort zones of various issues we like to treat. So it's been lovely to talk to you, Mary.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, if you want to hear more about Ciara Corcoran, you can find her details on the Homeopathy 24/7 website. And I'm sure we will meet again and have a cup of tea and talk about homeopathy.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ciara, for today. It's been lovely talking to you and listening to your stories. I hope everybody has really taken something away just to start tuning in to their bodies again and their intuition. Next week, we are going to be talking to Dr. Isaac Golden. Dr. Isaac Golden has been working with homeopathy for many years. He is renowned worldwide for his work on homeoprophylaxis and immunization options. So he has done a PhD on homeoprophylaxis. So we have a lot to discuss with him about homeopathic choices. I look forward to seeing you then.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode and look forward to listening to our next one. Please don't forget to follow our podcast on your chosen channel, and please do leave us a review so we can continue to share homeopathy with as many people as possible. If you do have any questions, please do reach out to us on any of our social platforms mentioned in the show notes. We at Homeopathy 24/7 hope to empower you on your natural health journey.